If you implemented Business Central Cloud for the Dallas Cowboys, do you think this seamless integration with Power BI would uncover years and years of wasteful spending that has ultimately resulted in absolutely no Super Bowl appearances for the past 20 years?
No comment.
Can I answer that?
Please.
No comment.
I think it would. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so too. It would save a lot of money. Welcome back, everyone. Today on the podcast, we'll be enjoying the Midwest's most popular craft beer while we chat with special guest Mark Heick, who is the implementation director at Solution Systems. We're also going to dive deep into the best features that are scheduled to be released in the Business Central 2020 Release Wave 2. And for our featured app segment, we take a look at Lanham's eShip and EDI. So in the words of Joe Sebahar, you don't have to be good to start, you just have to start to be good. Let's get started.
Over 200,000 businesses running this.
On the fat tire.
Or fat, what did I say, flat? Sorry.
If any of the operations that you're doing require the use of an outside processor or subcontract vendor, that is not supported with assembly.
Don't be afraid to talk to your partner.
Today, we're drinking Arrogant Bastard Ale.
Oh, I want to know why Jim picked this beer over the other one.
Because I really think it resembled, my personality more than anything else.
Level 3, Knuckles has been dispatched. He's on his way.
I think one of the benefits and detriments all at the same time is the visibility that it gave us into our actual data.
Welcome to another edition of A Shot of Business Central and a Beer.
It's another fine day at Solution Systems. Glad everybody listening is here with us for A Shot of Business Central, presented by Solution Systems, a Gold Microsoft partner. Ken Sebahar, Michael Intravartolo, and we're actually here with our special guest, Mark Heick. What's new and exciting, fellas?
Doing good. It's a pleasure to be with you guys.
Yep, doing great. I'm looking forward. We have a jam-packed schedule. I always love having new guests come on the show.
Yep.
So we can not only share the beer with them and actually drink free beer because they usually bring the beer.
Yep.
But also get to learn from more about Business Central from someone else's perspective other than just you and I.
Yeah, and I like having guests who have been pretty vocal about our choice of beer over the past 15 episodes, bring in the beer so that we can actually turn the tide a little bit and judge that beer.
Absolutely. Yeah. So what do we have on the agenda today, Michael?
So we got a jam-packed agenda, just like you said. We'll talk a little bit about the beer as usual. We're going to talk about the Shot of Business Central, which is going to be the 16.3 update that was released a little while ago. Talk about some features within that. Talk about the Nav UG announcement D365 UG announcement that was made today. And then we're going to jump into Mark, ask him a bunch of questions. From there, we will talk about the Lanham EDI and eShip app, and then close it out.
Wave 2.
Oh, yeah, the most important part. Talking about Business Central Wave 2. That'll be the featured segment.
Yep.
So let's jump into the beer then.
Yeah. Let's crack it open, huh?
Absolutely.
So thank you, Mark, for bringing in. We're drinking Boulevard Unfiltered Wheat Beer, Hazy American Classic. So we're just pouring them right here. We all brought glasses. When you see the word hazy, kind of makes you want to pour it into a glass and see what that looks like once it's all poured.
Yeah, I think they even recommend drinking it from a glass.
Yeah. So looks good so far.
What do you like
pretty
about,
good.
Yeah. So what do you like about this beer, Mark?
I just, in general, like wheat beer. I think it's kind of a different taste, a different aftertaste. It's less, less the general IPA where it has, to me, a stronger aftertaste. It's a much more easier drinking beer.
Not bad. So one of the things I noticed on the website and I want to talk about is that they said that this is the best-selling craft beer in the Midwest, and I would probably dispute that, just simply based on I've never heard of it, and I'm a pretty big beer drinker, as we all know.
Right. Yep. Yeah, I have no idea. I think there's a lot of marketing things. How do you define certain things, right? Who knows? Maybe it is. I did a little bit of research on Boulevard. It's in Kansas City. Started serving beer or pouring beer around 1989. And they've grown. So they started off, obviously, like all other craft beers, really small. Currently, to tell you about how large it now is, they currently have a bottling line that can bottle 350 bottles a minute.
Wow.
So to put that into perspective, that's 14,000 12 packs of beer per 8-hour shift.
Does that meet your standard for volume for craft beer?
Oh, absolutely.
Can we still call it a craft beer?
I think we can. I mean, I do. It's a local brewery, right, in Kansas City. So I think it's something that still can go under the category of craft.
It is, and what I thought was cool, they founded in Kansas City, Southwest Boulevard is where it was, and they still have a big presence there. They've expanded and grown, but stayed in the community, just added more buildings and more fermenters and whatnot. So, the community is important, and I'm sure they sell a lot more Boulevard in Kansas City, maybe, than they do by us in Chicago.
Yeah, definitely. And for you, you really crazy beer advocate people out there, to give you a little bit of the numbers, the alcohol by volume, the ABV is 4.4%, so not too strong. The IBUs, the International Bitterness Units, or Unites, is it units? Units?
Yeah.
I wrote unites. Is 14, so very low.
Very low.
Yeah. And just by first taste, it's pretty weak beer, especially compared to what we have been drinking.
4.4%.
Yeah.
It tastes light.
Very
clean,
light, yeah.
Crisp, good summer beer.
Mm-hmm.
I think I could drink a lot of these.
Easily.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is one. I think it's not one of those beers where after one or two you want to put it down. I mean, I think you can easily, over a course of a night, drink a couple beers and not have to switch to a different beer.
Yeah.
I'm picking up a little bit of aroma of horse blanket in here. Kind of a macro-like beer.
Yeah, I get the horse
What
blanket.
A session beer.
Covered with sheepskin.
You get that? Get that there? So, Mark, tell me what is it about the fermentation process that makes the beer hazy?
It takes a long time, Ken.
I'm just messing with you.
He's just a drinker.
Unfiltered, I guess, huh? That's what it says. And as always, I like to share a little bit. So some of the real beer enthusiasts out there on beeradvocate.com have shared some of their stories. What I'll tell you is overall, it seemed like indifference. People were like, yeah, it's okay. I'm not going to go out of my way for it, but it was pretty good,
right.
For a wheat beer. And I think maybe not a lot of people like wheat beers. So some of them that caught my attention, basically, and this is just like kind of a normal one. Strong wheat flavor, very drinkable beer, mild hop taste, it's a hint of citrus. If you like a wheat beer, this is a solid choice. Another one, very macro-like effort. Another one, if you like macro lagers, this is great when you want to crush something that's cold and easy drinking. If you want to try a richer wheat beer, try Bell's Oberon. And then this is my favorite.
Was that really part of it?
Yeah.
Oh, because...
I know, because he brought Oberon as a backup. Yeah. And then this is I like my favorite one. You got to wait for it at the very end, okay? If anyone tries to say anything but glowing remarks about this flawless liquid, I shall condemn them and their descendants to an eternity of natural light and misfortune. It's that good. I don't know what these reviews mentioning a bad aftertaste are talking about. And here it is. I am blessed to be from a city with such good beer. Nothing will compare.
We got a Kansas City.
Homer.
I don't know if I'd go that far, but I do agree that when I read it, there's some sites that have very, very good reviews, and there was a site I went to that had a lot of right down the middle type stuff.
Yeah.
I couldn't find anything too crazy like in years past, like with people describing it, with horse blanket or whatnot. I saw a lot of herbal ops. But other than that, I think the rating was 80, 81 for beer advocate, so not crazy high, but definitely not low.
So far, it works for me.
Yeah, it's not a bad beer at all.
I'm enjoying it.
I mean, no problem. I think it's got to be higher than a Corona, right? I mean, I know that was one of your past beers, but
we'll find out.
All right.
We need to let it sit and drink a couple of them here.
I think beer advocate rated Corona at something like 22 or some crazy.
They got that right.
Number.
It's all people who love craft beers on beer advocate. That's why.
Yeah.
So, with that, then we'll drink a little bit more and we'll give our reviews later. So with that, let's jump on into the shot of Business Central, which is there was a minor update, 16.3 release. I believe this is the first update that they called minor that I have seen in the past. So it wasn't anything too crazy.
Yeah, it was released to anyone who's running Business Central online. Came out around July 21st. There aren't too many new features in there. It's 16.3, so I think anything that's not a major release, like comes out in April or October, they probably is just a minor release. But this one, it doesn't have too many things in it. But there is one noteworthy improvement, which is that if you go into log into Business Central and go into the Admin Center, there is now a list of all of your apps. So you click on Manage Apps. It will show you if you're running the latest version of that app. And if you're not, it tells you what is the newest updated version with a link for you to install it.
Yeah, it's very nice. I've used it before. I think we could maybe be in a little bit of disagreement though about when it was offered. I think it was offered with the release wave 1, but I think that the option now, the 16.3, is the option to actually install the updates.
Okay, yeah.
So, but I think the actual page was there
to actually administer it there,
right?
And execute the update from the page.
But it's very nice. Makes it a lot easier.
Yeah.
Have you used it before?
I have not used it yet, but it to me it's something extremely valuable. I know we go through in implementations all the time, and our apps are left behind, right? Any of the add-ons we have or anything that we use from the App Store, typically once it's installed, doesn't really get looked at to get reinstalled. So this should give us a good helping hand to keep those up to date.
And I saw that Microsoft said, and with a little bit of coding, you can automate the installation of updates. And I'll actually provide a link to some sample code from GitHub in the show notes. So that's not bad. Automatic updating of the apps.
Yeah.
Anything else that noteworthy? I see the usual. They made a bunch of speed improvements, some telemetry improvements, bank reconciliation improvements.
Yeah.
I can't talk today. It's the wheat beer.
Yeah. So, next piece of news, we've got 2020 Wave 2 release document came out. So we were excitedly anticipating this. So it's a 362-page document that includes all of the Dynamics and Power Platform product releases in there that are coming out in October. Business Central is pages 233 to 276, so you got about 43 pages worth of content there, and 46 total new features across the areas of user interface, features, application, administration tools and service, development environment, and country regionalization. So
a lot of updates coming with the fall 2020 release wave 2.
I feel like we haven't done a Stump Michael question in a while, so I threw one in here. So, true or false?
Make it easy. All right.
I'm in a good mood today.
All right.
Business Central is currently available in more than 45 countries.
Currently, at this moment, right now. False.
It is false.
Is it?
The number though is 43.
Yeah, you're right.
So 40. I thought I would trick you up there because you wouldn't think I would go with a false question. But the number 43 countries it's now available in. It's a pretty impressive number.
And I think 4 more new ones are coming in the 2020 release wave too, right?
That's right. Yep.
I got my first one right.
I was going to ask what type of percentage you get right, so you just answered that.
Yeah.
Probably first one.
And we're gonna dive when we get into our feature spotlight later. We're gonna dive deeper into some of the key 46 changes that are out there.
Yes.
So what we think are important anyway.
Another quick note with Business Central. This is relating to the D365 UGG North American User Conference. It has finally come out now that it is all virtual, and it is $749 to register. Did either of you attend any Microsoft Inspire virtual events?
I did, yes.
What'd you think of the format and whatnot?
It's a virtual conference. I think it's valuable if there are good content, good learning opportunities for people, which the user group has always had that. So really, like the sessions are led by really knowledgeable people typically, or users. A lot of them are users themselves who have experienced it. So I think if you're after it for learning new content at the user group, I think it is valuable.
Yeah. You a virtual learner or?
For this one, I did register but did not attend. But yes, I actually think some of the different things that they've been doing virtually that Microsoft's put out there has been pretty good at the content.
Yeah, I really like it. I really like, especially because I take a lot of notes. So the ability to pause it as I'm watching it and write down the notes is very beneficial to me. You're not missing out on things as you're writing notes.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Now, of course, we'll miss all of the things that go into attending a conference.
Yes.
You miss the networking, the
people,
the socializing, and the interaction. That's huge. So that's unfortunate. Hopefully, we'll be back next year.
Yeah. Also, I don't know if we wanted to talk a little bit about this, but some thoughts on Microsoft offering the support subscriptions for Business Central users.
Yeah, this is something that is pretty new.
Yeah, it's funny when you sent me the document. I think the document was dated December 2019 or November 2019, but I had not seen it.
Yeah. So yeah, there is the ability for users to subscribe to a Microsoft support plan. It's an additional fee per user per month. Honestly, we haven't seen too much use of it.
Yeah.
In my opinion, when users are looking for support, they're generally not looking for basic information about how to do something.
Mm-hmm.
They're looking for guidance on, okay, how should we do it in this circumstance based on our business process? And that's where I think that a Microsoft partner is going to provide a lot more value because they've learned about your business and how you operate and can add a lot more context to it. And there are just already so many great online support tools available.
Mm-hmm. So, if I can be honest, I'm not a big fan of it. I'm not a fan of Microsoft taking away power, I guess, from the partner, helping the customer, so that we can build that relationship and continue to offer support for them. I mean,
it has been available for years in the Dynamics chain. It was so when a customer would go through an annual enhancement plan renewal, they could actually pay an additional percentage for advanced support plans through Microsoft.
Oh.
How many people did we see do it? None.
I never even knew that. So yeah,
so far.
Not too popular.
Right.
Yeah.
And the reason was because of what I said. They call Microsoft and say, "Hey, I'm running this report," and they go, "Oh, well, that's a custom report. We can't help you."
Mm-hmm.
Or, it's just very general, high-level guidance. Is historically what's there. But because we want to cover all of our bases here on this podcast,
we're fair.
Cover the news, cover what's out there, and make sure people are aware of what their options are.
All right. So the next segment then is where you're going to dive in more with Mark Heick. I said your name correct this time.
Thank you.
I'm going to find out a little bit of what he does and what he thinks of Business Central and his implementation powers.
I'm looking forward to it. Where's that list of questions?
Back with our special guest segment here on A Shot of Business Central and a Beer. We briefly mentioned that Mark Heick is with us, but we didn't really ask him what he does and, to tell us a little bit about himself. So, Mark, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. I've been, for business-wise, implementing ERP systems now for coming close to probably 25 years. Working with Nav and Business Central now for over 15 years. I've been at Solution Systems working here. I started out as a business analyst, project manager for distribution, manufacturing, warehousing. I dabbled in probably all the other types of granules available. And for the past 10 years, I have been kind of overseeing a group of project managers and developers and business analysts and overseeing all of our Business Central projects.
So you started with about Nav 4.0, is my guess?
At the end of 4.0, but the first one I really dug in and learned was 5.0.
So now up through Business Central version 16. Yeah.
Yes.
All
We've got an expert in the house.
Well, hopefully we'll find out.
So I'm excited. We will get to ask some questions of Mark about something that's, I think, very important to a lot of people, which is, okay, this software is great, but now how do I get it up and running? And it's not usually an easy, simple process. Mm-hmm. Some companies do start from scratch where they have no legacy information or data or processes that they have to worry about. But most of the time, they've been running some other system. So trying to, or multiple different systems that aren't talking to each other. And now they're implementing one integrated ERP system. And that can be difficult. So that's kind of what we specialize in here, is helping people with Business Central and figure out how they can get it up and running. So that's going to be our focus here today, is on questions about how do we do that and what are some of the ways we do it and so on.
Well, before we start asking Mark questions, let's ask him first. Do you have any hobbies or interests?
Yeah, I'm a pretty simple person, but yeah, I always have enjoyed sports, watching sports, playing sports. During this time, it's been a little bit more difficult. There's not much happening in the world of sports. Get made fun of around here from the Chicago area as a Dallas Cowboys fan. Watch them closely and pretty much watch all their games. Also, just a personal note, part of a big family that all lives in the area, so spend a lot of time with family since we're all in such a close proximity.
So a Dallas Cowboys fan in the home of the Chicago Bears.
Absolutely.
He's not from Dallas.
Is that easy or difficult?
It's been easy because the Bears have never been so very good. So
they're Super Bowl champions or something the last 25 years.
Well, I understand, but I'm probably giving away my age a little bit, right? So I was in college during all the Super Bowls, right? And Dallas was very good through the late 70s, 80s, and early 90s. So growing up with, I have three brothers, so we were all big Cowboys fans. And during that time, really, other than a couple of years in the 80s, the Bears were never any good. So it was pretty easy to drift towards them. First couple games I went to was down in Texas Stadium. I have an uncle that lives down there and would take us to the Thanksgiving games. So we'd go down there every other year for Thanksgiving. He'd take us to a game. So he kind of just bought our fandom.
There you go.
There you
That's
go.
one way to put it.
Certainly backs up his game.
Well, shall we get started then with grilling Mark over here?
Yeah, let's do
Want to
it.
hit him with the first question?
Yeah, go for it.
All right, I will. Which types of companies do you believe are a good fit for Business Central?
Yeah, I mean, Business Central is, it's a vast, a lot of companies that it can be. And to be honest, in my role as implementation director overseeing it, I don't really get, a choice of which one. So many of the, as sales goes through and makes their decisions, we take on any ones they bring. So I see it for, small, medium. We even have some large size. So if, depending on what you're doing, anywhere from 3 users up to over 250 for sure, we have customers. So I think that, the best fit when you look and we talk about it is just not size, but we talk about the culture of these companies. The best companies that we work with while implementing are the ones that are able to commit to change, understand, and not be stuck in a certain way. They're willing to change. And what I'm finding too is just as we go through this, it does take a full team. So a full team on the client side committed to it with a lot of buy-in from the upper management to make sure that these projects go smooth. So those are the best ones that I enjoy working with because they're willing to indoor change and work through implementations.
So what you're saying is one of the beauties of Business Central is that it's versatile and can work with many different industries.
Yes, it's. I think they when Microsoft came out and looked at all the different ways and verticals, right? One of the great things about it is there is so many different verticals and so many different, just not even using verticals, just between distribution, manufacturing. The software really is a good fit for both of those, financials, service management. There's so many different types of industries that it's really hard for me to say it's a good fit for something in particular. It's typically a good fit for a lot of companies.
Yeah, I think we've seen a lot of companies that have that broad set of requirements, right? So maybe you have inventory you need to keep track of and purchase, and obviously you sell it, but you may also be a manufacturer who's manufacturing things, and then when you sell it, you have to service those items that you sold, right? So I think to your point, it seems like companies that have like a broad range of requirements, inventory and manufacturing related, seem to be a good fit. But a lot of our customers just are financials only.
Right.
So
we do quite a bit of financial only projects, and it's definitely a good fit for that, and has a lot of functionality of that. And it also gives them the ability to move it's not just financials, which is great. So a company that only does financials has the ability to grow into the software.
Yep. All right. So Michael, nice softball question to start.
That's right.
We'll crank up the difficulty level here a little bit. So I'm not going to go out on a limb here too far, but everyone knows not every ERP implementation is successful, right? Because as we said, it's not always that easy.
Right.
So Mark, what do you see as the biggest differentiators between the companies that are able to implement their new system successfully and those that are not as successful?
Yeah, to me it's easy, right? So I've always, as I mentioned earlier, I have a team of project managers, developers, business analysts, and I always say my team will never make a project successful, right? It comes into the client, right? I can make a project go. My team can work really hard and make it, go live. But to be successful, it really takes a good client team who's dedicated to the project, who's willing to learn the software, who's willing to, change and review processes. To me, that's where the differentiator is which clients actually take the project on, have the time, commit the resources, and have the right people in place to have a successful implementation.
There you go.
Yeah, I mean, when you invest in this type of software, you've got to be committed.
Yeah, I always tell people, look, you have this new software, Business Central, or really anything, right? At some point, if you're going to use it successfully, you have to learn how it works. So why not learn it soon, now, before you get to the point where it's too late, or right, you cause yourself problems.
Yeah, put the time and effort in before it goes live, for sure.
Correct. I always use the word ownership, right? The clients that take ownership of the software will be the most successful. The clients that look and say, well, your software is this, or your software doesn't do this, they're not taking ownership and saying this is going to be part of their business, and the implementations that go are a lot tougher to go through successfully.
So speaking of successful then, what do you, or how do you judge or determine, what part of an implementation project or how an implementation project is successful?
It's a good question, Michael. So a lot of customers, they're going to look at this and say, is it a success? They're going to look at on time, on budget. I am prepared to say I look at on time, I look at on budget, but those necessarily are not my drivers for success in the typical terms of what you do. Obviously, it is part of it. What I'm looking for is my goal is to have the client get through an implementation and be able to not interrupt their business, right? I want to get them live on what they do today. I try to get them to not do everything all at once, to be as successful as they can, but getting it live in a shorter period of time, right? So I look at on time. We obviously watch the budget. It's very important to everyone. We look at the timeline. It's very important. But my key measures are making sure that they implement it successfully and we do not disrupt their business.
Does the customer agree with your measurement of success?
They only agree when it doesn't happen that way, right? So if it does disrupt their business or if it does do that, right? A lot of customers, they look, right, they're watching, is this on time, is it on budget? We do differ in the ways that the success of it. We, at times, we do have the same, we're looking at the same measures, we're looking at that to see if it's successful, but a lot of times I might say it's successful a couple of weeks into, a month into a go live, right? Where I know that this is successful is where it might take the client a few more months to come around and see the things that I saw that took place and the differences of how the system is working to their business, to then come back to the same measures that I was looking at to say that it was a successful implementation.
So do you think there's really a way to ensure that, everyone's idea of success is the same?
Yeah, I do. I think one of the key things is to always set some goals up front. What are we trying to do? What makes a successful implementation, right? Make sure that we know, it's important for me to understand what is important to the customer. What do they consider successful? So that I can then make sure throughout the project that we're meeting in project status meetings, once a week or every other week to verify that we're staying on track and that we're not only doing the things that I know is going to make the systems, the system and the implementation successful, but that we're also hitting on the customer's goals and what they're looking for to be successful. Lastly, also, I think it's important that after the project to really meet, understand, talk about where we are on those original goals, and to see how we did, and to go through why maybe some of the stuff wasn't as successful as what they thought, or what was the reasons. But I think it's important to constantly meet, and as I said, some of the goals of the project in the beginning don't always end up being the same goals of successful measures at the end. So to kind of throughout the project, adjust those if they need to be, right? Adjust what we're trying to do. Yeah. There's times that projects are, a 9-month project suddenly has to be a 6-month project because something's going on. Goals are adjusted. Timeline becomes more important than maybe getting all the features into the system. So readjusting and what those goals are is, can quickly change on what is a successful project in people's eyes.
And come up with a better list than get the system up and running, right?
Yes, correct.
Spend a little more time on it than that.
That's when there's no line of communication, right?
So that's so whether you're successful or not, right? Hindsight's 20/20, and I think there are always some lessons learned of going through any big project, right? So whether it's like an ERP business system implementation like this, or you're just remodeling your bathroom at home or something, right? You always go back, man, and in hindsight, I wish we would have done this,
always.
Or I wish I would have done that. What are some things, have you heard, when you talk to users after the fact, that we can share with people, like common things that you've heard after the fact where they say, boy, I really wish we would have done this?
Yeah, a couple that popped in my mind right away is you hear a lot of, we should have spent more time in the system. We should have spent more time understanding how the system works, setting our processes. Instead of trying to duplicate how our system works today, a lot of times we get into these implementations and they're used to their system working a certain way, and they want to make Business Central the same system, right? And it's instead of learning how it works and doing it, they end up starting to want to modify it, right? So we typically try to hold off on those enhancements until they really learn it, but in some cases they just never do. So that's one of the big ones we hear. The second one I hear a lot is data migration. That we didn't understand the effort it was going to take to get our data out, to scrub our data, to clean our data. So a lot of times if we do miss a timeline, it might be because of data migration, that it took way longer than what people were prepared or what they thought would take to get their data cleaned up. It's typically not getting the data into Business Central. We have some really good tools to bring in the data, but it's getting it out of a legacy system, cleaning the data up. They want to get clean it up, get rid of some stuff before they import it in. They don't want to bring in bad data. So we hear a lot of that. The data was much tougher sometimes for them to get out of their system.
All right. So you've been implementing Dynamics on-premise, I guess you said, since NAV 5.0. And now a lot of the implementations have basically transitioned to cloud-based. What are some of the key changes you've seen as companies move to the cloud, and what have you had to do differently?
Yeah, there are a couple things that I've noticed is, in the past we did a lot. There was more people wanted to use the system a certain way and do this. A lot of our customers, we hear it constantly over and over when we start. We want to use the standard product as much as possible, right? We're not used to hearing that, or when we did hear it in the past, they didn't really mean it, right? They'd say, it was just something they felt they had to say. We want to use as much standard as we can, and then you'd get into the implementation and they would modify it quite a bit. We are definitely seeing that, people are enhancing Business Central, but it is less. People are using a lot more of the standard features. So we are seeing that. The other thing we're seeing is, that I've noticed is people are more willing to go in and learn some of this stuff on their own, watch videos, kind of get ahead and try to implement some of this stuff on their own. Even when using some of these add-ons, whether it's the Lanham product that we're gonna talk about later, or some of the other add-ons. It's they can go search for them, right? They can find these apps that do what they're looking for it to do. They can watch a video of it right on the marketplace. So, and also see free trials where they can load it, install it, and start to test it out, even without really talking to us. I don't necessarily always recommend that. Yeah. But they do have the ability to do that, and so I think a lot of those things are becoming easier for them.
And I think a lot of that is Microsoft is marketed that way, right? Where it's pretty much buy, and they make it seem as you can just buy it and log on and you're good to go within 2 hours. Download an app, jump on, and it's really not that easy.
It's not plug and play, no.
Exactly.
But it is closer than it used to be, right? I mean, I guess is the way I'd put it. It is not a plug and play. I do recommend having a partner, having them help you with a lot of these things. But it is a lot closer to being able for people to get up and running with less help if they want to.
Okay. So have you noticed anything that's kind of hasn't changed from NAV to Business Central? I mean, is a lot of it the same, or would you say a lot of it's different?
Yeah, I think implementation wise, it can be very, very similar. Right? It's the going to the cloud hasn't really changed too much of, whether it be functionality. There is more, obviously more of the connection with Office 365 and stuff that we have to learn to help implement it. But I think some of the things that we've seen that has been different is that we do have, with subscription-based licensing, that the startup costs for someone to start an implementation can be, I don't know, you're in sales, but very cheap, right? I mean, you can get this
$100.
Couple $100, you can get the system up and you can get people into the system, right? That's way different than it used to be. To me, that's a great thing for the client, but it also makes implementations tougher because in a lot of times, the team's not as committed, right? Maybe upper management said, you know what, go ahead. I don't know that we did all our research or if this is the right system, but for $300, let's give it a shot. right?
Right.
That's where I talked earlier that I like, the clients where they have, from upper management all the way through the people that are, wanting to implement this and committed to the project. Sometimes you don't see that in these ones where, in these cloud implementations, and it's harder to get them going all the way through because they're just not committed as much as they used to be.
It's a lot easier just to abandon it too.
Right.
Absolutely.
You only commit in a couple $100, it doesn't work.
Yeah, you run into one little roadblock and you
Yeah.
might just call the whole thing off, right? Whereas before, if you spent tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars on equipment and software for an on-premise solution, you aren't going to walk away so quickly.
You were more willing to look at alternative ways to do different processes instead of just saying, you know what, we're going to stop and go somewhere else, right?
All right, let's have some fun. I got a couple fun questions here. So, let's say Microsoft grants you a wish or multiple wishes, whichever, on ways that you'd like to see Business Central improved. What are you asking for?
So, yeah, I have a couple. I spend a lot of my time as in these projects where I get more heavily involved when it comes into manufacturing and warehousing. So I end up with a lot of different requests there. But the planning tools, right? So the planning worksheet has a lot of built-in rules on how things work. So I would love to have, and I think we need that for MRP and MPS to function correctly. But for some of the smaller companies, they're looking for more simplified ways of just reorder point quantities and reorder point quantities and ROQ. So they want to just simple tools that, hey, when I get below this, order me this, right? And don't worry about an overflow level. There's other things and stuff involved in how that MRP and MPS planning and requisition worksheets work. I'd love to have some simple tools that are very basic that some customers can use to plan their purchases around. Second, I'd like, for permissions, right? I think everyone struggles with permissions. I'd love to have some different tools where we can make the ability for them to set up the permissions easier. And the last thing is when we get into warehousing, right? There's a bunch of different levels of warehousing and how everything works, and I just think there's some ways that they can improve some of the flow within the more advanced warehousing to make life a little bit easier on the client. So I'd love to, I get it. I'm not going to get in too deep on those.
Yeah.
But the good news is they do have, I don't know how much you guys on your podcast talk about Business Central ideas, where you can go in and put your ideas in there and write anything that you want, and people vote on it, and some of these ideas actually get passed. So at least everybody has the ability to put their suggestions in, and they do get looked at.
Yeah, we have talked about it, and as a matter of fact, I think in the last release, several of the new features were directly from those top-ranked, top vote getters for those ideas.
If your viewing is big enough in the future, maybe I'll have you guys put some of my ideas out there for people to vote on, because I don't seem to get mine voted through all the time.
In the words of Ken, we're worldwide, baby.
That's right. I'll send them to you guys and maybe get those on the air and get some of mine to get passed through.
All right, so the bar is closing. You're talking to someone, you've only got 30 seconds to convey some words of wisdom to help them get their new Business Central system implemented successfully. What do you tell them? And I'm timing you.
Tell me when to start.
You got 30 seconds.
Starting now?
Starting now.
Set goals and milestones and manage to them, right? It's very important to make sure we're setting goals and milestones so we know where we're at in the project. Don't overcomplicate things. Set phases to the project when possible. Crawl, walk, run, right? Get up and running. Don't assume how the product works. Learn it, test it, and verify it. Lastly, document what you want the system to do so you know if you can be successful.
24 seconds.
I got 6 seconds to spare, and that was 4 good points.
I like this quick pace, Michael.
All right.
Let's hit him with a speed round.
Are you ready, Mark?
I'm always ready, Michael.
All right. Would you say implementing Business Central Cloud takes more, the same, or less time than an on-premise implementation?
I would say this is the speed
Quick,
round.
man, quick.
Sorry. the same or less, right? It's in between those two. They do give some ability to do quicker startups, more assisted setups. Add-on and extensions are easier to install and set up. It's not as quick as you would. It's not as quick as the client would want it to do, or their perception is. But it can be a little quicker.
As could your answer.
It's my first time in the speed round.
All right, next. Does the customer expect the cloud implementation to be shorter or longer than an on-premise implementation?
I answered both questions in one and the last. That's speed for you.
Yep.
Less.
During this pandemic, the less contact we have with other people, the better it is to combat the spread of coronavirus. That being said, can a Business Central Cloud implementation be completed 100% remotely?
It can, and it has. So, and we have another one coming up this Monday that will be going live 100% remote.
Do more customers like or dislike not having total control of security and software updates?
I think they like it. I do. I just think I think that's something that they enjoy, and I don't think they actually have always spent that much attention to it in the past. So I think they don't mind losing that control of it.
Let's say a customer is running a legacy software on-premise. They have years and years of data and many customizations. Are you confident each and every customization could be converted to an extension for a cloud migration to Business Central?
Yes. A year ago, my answer would have been no. Today, I believe that yes, we can, but there might have to be some thought and a little bit of workarounds and ways to get some of the stuff done. But yes, I think it's very, very close to being able to.
And the last question before I pass it on over to Ken. If you implemented Business Central Cloud for the Dallas Cowboys, do you think this seamless integration with Power BI would uncover years and years of wasteful spending that has ultimately resulted in absolutely no Super Bowl appearances for the past 20 years?
No
Can I
comment.
answer that?
Please.
No comment.
I think it would. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so too. It would save a lot of money.
This is a speed round, may I remind you to.
All right, nice job, Mark. Nice job.
All right, let's wrap up with a couple beer questions here. Thank you, Mark, for coming out. But before we move along to our next segment here, I just got to know, what was your favorite beer when you turned 21 years old?
At 21, it would have been Miller Lite or Amstel Light. Before 21, it would have been the old style 30-pack. Not my favorite, just the most convenient to get.
421.
Yeah.
And how about today?
Today, as you can see, I am a fan of wheat beers. So my favorite beer would probably be Oberon or Goose Island 312.
And now, let's see if you're truly a beer nerd or not. So you suddenly develop an allergy to alcohol that's going to stay with you for the rest of your life. But somehow there's one specific drink or brand or cocktail or wine that doesn't negatively affect you with this allergy. What is that? What do you hope that drink is?
A little upset that you try to put this type of thing on me, but it would definitely be whiskey. I would hope I'm not allergic to whiskey. I would drink whiskey before beer. But I will be honest, I'm a kind of split, depending on where and what I'm doing. Small settings, whiskey; larger settings, beer. How's that sound?
That sounds great. So next time we come in, maybe we'll bring in
a true
we'll do
shot.
a shot,
Yeah.
a true shot of Business Central and whiskey.
If I'm ever invited back, it did take over a year before you guys invited me. Absolutely.
Yep.
And we do fact check this separately, so
Yeah, so
that's a negative.
We'll let you stick around and talk about these other segments here. But thank you again for coming in and joining us. And I'm sure that people, learn something from your insights and experience.
Definitely appreciate it. Before we move on, do we want to rate the beer, or do we want to?
I could use another beer.
I'm ready.
We will.
Yeah.
All right. What would you give it?
I'm gonna go 87.
87. Pretty high.
I do. I like it. It's like I said. It's easy drinking. I think we all agree. We're all opening up another one
it's
here.
Easy to get down.
And I think it's flavorful. I'd buy it for sure and drink it. So
And since this is your top,
Yeah, this
beer,
is
what
one
would
of
you
my
give it?
top. This is one of my top beers. This one is I drink a lot between Oberon 312 and this. I stick to wheat beers. I would put this one probably around a 91.
Not bad. I also like it. It could use a lime. No, I'm just kidding. I would probably, I'd probably give it a solid 85. It's light. It's not my favorite light beer. I mean, you guys know I like Coronas and things like that, so I would opt for that before this.
Yep.
But it's definitely good.
Definitely more weedy than a Corona.
Yeah.
Well, at least I did not go under a 50, which means it's a drinkable beer, so I don't feel
Correct.
bad about bringing this in.
Correct. All right, next up, I think we're talking about the Business Central 2020 Release Wave 2 and all the features that accompany it, so stay tuned.
All right. In this segment, we're going to dive deep down into some of the new changes that are coming out with 2020 Wave 2 in October. As we mentioned earlier, there's approximately 45 or so new features and additions that are coming out with this release. And what we're going to do is focus on some of the key ones, some of the big ones that we think are noteworthy, at least here. So we're just going to kind of go down the list here and do a little color commentary as needed. So the first one is better improved visibility to database and file capacity. Currently, right, there are each environment is provided with 80 gigabytes of storage space, and what this does is it provides warnings if a copy of your environment will exceed 80 gig. So it basically now provides alerts when you exceed that limit to know that you're going to be charged for additional storage capacity.
Yeah, definitely a good thing. Always better to plan ahead than just to exceed that database amount and then experience some sort of slowdown or whatnot.
Yeah.
Next up, we've got support for unlimited production and Sandbox environments. Basically, what it says, you can have as many production environments as you want. There is talks that there might be a price that will be needed to purchase these production environments. We're not too sure how the pricing will work or whatnot. I think this is a great feature, especially with Business Central expanding and bigger companies, taking on Business Central. They're going to need the multiple production environments.
Yeah, I don't think it'll impact most people, but there definitely are some organizations out there that will impact. All right, next one is database access intent to read only for reports. So this is kind of a technical one, but what it does is it allows a property to be set when you run reports to improve performance. So what happens is you can set up a report to use a read-only replica of your Business Central database to improve performance of that report and minimize the performance impact on other users. So if you're running a ton of reports, that will not impact users who are entering data or posting transactions in the system. So
Very nice.
any improvements they can make that are seamless to the user that improve performance, we're all for it.
Agreed 100%. Which leads us into default unit cost for non-inventory items. This is basically for use in assigning cost to sales, assembly, or production orders. You can update these on the item/SKU card. So really there's no need for manual updates. Just specify the default values to use in the new documents and journals.
Yep. And that's really going to help for profitability reporting in the system.
Yeah, and I think as more and more as we get away from resources and start using these non-inventory items, the more they add on to them, just the more help and the more useful we're going to be able to use them.
Yep. Okay. Next one is bank reconciliation improvements. I feel like every single release that comes out, there are some bank reconciliation improvements, which I think is important because it is something that's kind of tricky for people to do. So this is actually a series of changes. So some of these changes that they're adding in this release, one, the ability to cancel a posted bank rec, which is huge. If you did something wrong, you need to undo it and unmark transactions is cleared. You can do that. There's some improved automatic reconciliation of differences. You now can allow a one-to-many matching. So instead of one transaction to one bank transaction, you can actually set up to do a one-to-many, which is needed in several scenarios. There's number series improvements. You can do posting preview. And also there's assisted setup to improve the implementation for setting up your banks and setting up your opening balances.
Nice. And also, the bank account reconciliation page will have more space for data to allow for a better overview of statement lines and the related bank account ledger entries. Next up, notify users of high-risk changes in selected setup fields. This is basically for security purposes. You can define a list of fields that contain high risk and business critical data that you want to be notified of when something is changed in those fields.
Yeah, I think that's a really cool one because there's always some important fields that are in the system that if you change it, it can have a huge impact on your data and what's happening. So that's kind of a cool, really cool new feature.
It's a little. I think I like it because it's in the past we've always been reactionary using changelog for things like this, and now we can actually be on top of it as it happens before some of the bad data goes through with these changes.
Yeah. Next one is there's some improvements for copying journals and reversing transactions. So there's a new function now in the general journal page. And what it allows you to do is easily reverse existing entries where you can copy from an original batch, reverse the signs, change your date or information. So it's kind of like the copy document feature that's existed for sales and purchase documents, but now you can copy posted journals to build new journal entries.
Pretty cool. Next up is... well, it's probably going to be my favorite new feature, even though there's not too much out there about it yet, and that is the integration between Business Central and Microsoft Teams. Haven't really seen too much about what it's going to encompass. I'm assuming it's kind of like the Outlook add-in and whatnot. You'll be able to see some of your information in Business Central. This is probably also Mark's favorite feature.
I think so. And you know what?
No, it depends what it does, right?
Every month that goes by and we're all continuing to adapt to a more remote workplace, the more and more I rely on Teams on a daily basis.
Yep.
For almost most of the calls and meetings that I do now are in Teams. I think I spend almost as much time in Teams as I do in Outlook and communicating and talking to people.
Yeah, it's amazing over the last few months. Very rarely does someone from Solution Systems call me on my cell phone anymore.
Right.
It's almost all through Teams.
Yeah. So I think the more they can do to embed Business Central into Teams, obviously that's a win-win. Yeah. All right. Next, I'm going to kind of do a two for one here, which is the ability to migrate from on-premise Business Central 14 or 15 to Business Central Online 16. So what Microsoft is doing is trying to make it easy. Anyone who's running any version of Business Central on-premise, as long as you've got all extensions for your customizations and add-ons in your database, you can use the setup migrate to the cloud tool to go from either version 14 or 15 up to 16. So, and I'm sure they're going to continue making it easier and easier for customers to move to the cloud.
Yeah, I mean, Microsoft's obviously pushing the cloud, and this is just one more way that they're making it easier to jump into the cloud. Next feature is pages with fact boxes are more responsive. And this is really going to contain 3 changes. The first is the primary page part loads first and then the fact boxes. Second would be the fact boxes run in the same session unless developers implemented a page background task. And the third change is when collapsed, fact boxes are not loaded when opening a page, but run on demand when a fact box is expanded. So once again, this kind of goes back to the whole speeding up Business Central in the cloud to make it more responsive for people to use and whatnot.
Yeah, and I don't know how many, maybe most people haven't even noticed this as an impact, but as you get more and more data in there, and those fact boxes have to crunch more numbers, you can see a slight lag where you can't click on something on the page until those fact boxes have loaded. This change eliminates that. So as soon as the data in the primary page part is visible, you can act, and you don't have to wait for those fact boxes to load. Role center pages, another similar one, similar to what you said. The role center pages open faster, and what it's doing here is it's caching the role center page the first time it's opened. So that every time the user goes back to the role center page, it's significantly faster.
Yeah, the only thing with this, I just wish they would have said the cache periods, like when it's recached, how long in between each cache. So.
Yep.
All right, next up, data audit system fields are added to every table. So 4 new fields are added to every table that are automatically populated. Those are last modified on, last modified by, created by, and created on. What this does, it really gives developers an easy way to program against historical data, such as writing AL queries, that return change data since some specific point in time.
Yep. Let's skip this one here. So you've got on-demand joining of companion tables. So again, this is end users may not really care about this one, but so what was happening was, as you built extensions, let's say you had a customer table and you created an extension to add a new field to the customer table, and then you added another extension that adds another new field to the customer table, and you continued doing that. So you had 10 extensions, all that impacted the customer table. Well, what was happening was a performance degradation as you added each of those extensions. So whatever they've done behind the scenes, I don't really know or need to care, but whatever they've done is they've eliminated that. So the fact that you have 10 extensions for 10 fields on the customer table now is no longer an issue. So from a development standpoint, it offers a lot more flexibility, and you don't have to be maybe as well thought out up front when you're developing it to say, let's take all 10 of these fields and make sure they're in one extension. So because you inevitably are going to have multiple extensions that impact one object or entity. So I think this is a nice change that isn't going to be is going to not be as important to make sure you've got a developer who's thought about the big picture and how things happen to make sure your performance is staying strong.
All right, next up is one that I'm curious to hear what Mark thinks about, because I think it's going to be one of the more popular features out there, and that is restoring environments to a point in time in the past. So it's a new option to restore any point in time within the past 30 days, even if it's a minor or major update that has been deployed. You can first restore into a sandbox, test it, confirm all the information. That restore point process, let's see here, is to rename the production environment and then restore the backup with the production environment, so both environments are now simultaneously accessible. You get a maximum of 10 attempts per environment per month. Do you guys think this is going to be something that the end user, the customer, will be able to do, or is it going to be relegated to the partner that's going to have to do it? And do you think it's going to be popular?
Yeah, I guess my question is this more of for the sandbox, or is this more for a restore? Something went wrong, data got corrupted, and we're restoring back? Is that
production? Yeah.
So I mean, I would say it's probably not necessarily a customer thing. It's probably more of a partner thing, but I think it's a needed thing, right?
Yeah.
It's not just a nice feature. It's something that has been needed, right? I mean, if there in the past, I think you just really have not been able to without going through Microsoft, and could take a while to restore these things. So it's a needed feature.
Yeah. Knock on wood, we have not had to go back and request this or have this done, but it certainly gives people peace of mind to know that if I botch something really bad in my system. I accidentally post 1,000 transactions that I didn't mean to or something, that I can go back and restore to yesterday.
Yeah.
Right.
Or at any point in time.
And in the past, it had for Microsoft to do it. If you accidentally posted 1,000, you had to go accidentally and redo and repost it. Right? They were only doing it for like integrity issues. So they probably would have turned down the one request you just made there in the past. Now it's available, so I think it's a huge thing.
Yeah.
And you think 10 attempts is more than enough for any?
I would hope so.
I hope so.
I'd say you're doing something real wrong
Yeah.
if you need more than 10 in a month.
Yes.
Right. And then I think the last one we're going to touch on today is that Sandbox environments can be updated to a public preview version. So this new feature, you use this to copy your production environment to a new sandbox that is also then in the preview of the new release. So this allows customers to go in a month maybe before the new release is dropped while we're in that preview period, and actually update that the current production environment with current data into the sandbox with the new preview so they can test out new features. Ultimately, the point here is to make sure that the actual application of the update to your production environment goes smoothly.
Mm-hmm.
You can identify any issues maybe with any apps or extensions that you have in your environment. Also give users an opportunity to test new features before they come out.
Right.
If I may, you skipped over this one, and you did it on purpose because I know you had marked it, but it's kind of dear to me here. The data fields, they've added 4 fields to every table. Last modified on, last modified by, and created on.
Mm-hmm.
As an implementation person, I don't know how many times the created by and created on fields I'm adding to so many different tables. This is just long overdue and a great feature that's going to help us not only for development to use for queries and doing things on those fields, but just for the fact of how many people want to know who created this sales order. It seems so simple, but we have to do that on every implementation.
That is a very good one. Excellent.
All right. I think Ken gets to lead us out of this one since he brought us into it.
So yeah, I think we're looking forward to all these changes here that are coming out in October. I would expect that the preview will be available hopefully by around Labor Day. If it's out sooner, you'll hear from us. Certainly, we'll be talking about this at the next podcast. If it is available, we'll go in and test out some of these new features and maybe have some more feedback on them. But until then, we're excited. You can go out and we have the link to the document, to the release notes on our podcast page.
Back for the featured apps segment, and this month we were talking about Lanham eShip and EDI. I guess we're going to be talking about that it's pretty much available now for Business Central. Ken, what else are we talking about here with it?
Right. Yeah, so why are we talking about Lanham eShip and EDI today? So for anyone who's been around the Dynamics NAV community for years and years, Lanham has had add-on solutions available for NAV. So built-in shipping solution for UPS, FedEx, LTL, bill of ladings, and so on. Things that distribution companies need for shipping, all built into NAV, as well as a fully built-in EDI solution, so that you can transact with your trading partners electronically on the purchasing side and the sales side. So what's newsworthy today is that just recently, Lanham has now made those same solutions available as apps for Business Central. And I think what's important is again, people who are looking for shipping solutions or EDI solutions, yes, there are certainly other solutions out there that are available, and we have implemented multiple of those, over the last couple of years. But there are still companies that either need or use or want a solution where the EDI and shipping are fully integrated, the ability to easily produce an advanced shipping notice electronically that you can take from your shipping that has all your package detail information, and then send that out electronically to your EDI trading partners. That's kind of the bread and butter of the Lanham eShip and EDI solution. So it's taken them a while to get to this point, right? I mean, Business Central Cloud came out two years ago, and just recently are these apps available. So I'm sure there are people out there who are running some version of NAV that are looking forward to moving to Business Central and maybe even migrating to the cloud. And now these solutions, or these apps that have been widely sold over the years, are now available for people to implement in the cloud or on-premise.
Do you happen to know off the top of your head, pricing-wise, in the past with Nav, was it a per-user charge, or was it like a per-feature charge?
It was always like a per module, so you'd pay for eShip, you'd pay for EDI, and then maybe you'd pay for carriers or a scale interface or other features. And so now all of the pricing, they may still offer the same type of pricing, but for the most part, it's the same model except it's monthly subscription prices.
Right. So it's not a per-user charge, it's a per-feature charge still.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
Very nice.
Yeah. So I think there's probably a lot of people out there that are interested to know that these apps are now available. And then, as Mark mentioned earlier, one of the great things about Business Central Cloud is that you can go in and create a sandbox, and you can install the apps. And there's assisted setup tools that make it significantly easier to get these apps set up and get up and running on them. So they've embraced the cloud. They have moved their subscription pricing available. There's assisted setup tools. So all the things that I think probably took them a while, because it is a pretty robust solution. And now it's something that is adapted to the new world.
Better to get it right when it's released than put it out early and make it wrong. Anything you'd like to add to it?
Yeah, not only is this good, right, for new customers that we have this, but also, right, there is a lot of existing customers. It was one of the more used shipping and EDI apps in the previous versions. So it's now available for them when they want to upgrade. Ken, do you have any insight on the upgrade path of going from one version to the next on that?
I don't, although I know there are tools that you can use to export trading partner information. If you're using EDI, you can export trading partner information and then import it in. Also, we of course have the Rapid Start data migration tools for Business Central. So if you can extract that data out of NAV, you then could use Rapid Start to import some of those setups. So some of my thoughts.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
I wasn't sure if you were holding out on me or
No, I was not. I was curious.
All right, there you have it. The featured app segment, Lanham eShip, coupled with Lanham EDI. And on that note, we want to say thank you to our special guest, Mark Heick, for joining us and giving us some insight into the mind of a implementation consultant.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Thanks for the beer.
No problem.
Also want to say to our listeners, don't forget, subscribe to us on YouTube, share the podcast, and if you have any questions, let us know.
All right, till next time.